Welcome, Rotarians and guests, to the Rotary Club of York, where our mission is to improve life in the city of York by connecting our club's diverse community leaders through fellowship, action, and service. I am your president, Wilda Ream, and if you think I'm a little shorter today, I am. As you can see, I'm a bit more casual than usual today. We're holding our closing retreat for our leadership training program. So I snuck out of there to come here to run the meeting. So I'm feeling a little out of sorts. Also not as tall, but anyway. So as you know, we start off our meeting by reciting the four-way test. Please join me. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Rotarians use the Rotary four-way test to guide our actions and words. The Rotary Club of York is committed to celebrating the diversity and uniqueness of all people, treating everyone with courtesy, dignity, and respect. And we expect the same from everyone we encounter. Embracing diversity and promoting equity is essential for the betterment of our club, our community, and the world. Today, our opening song, America the Beautiful, and the pledge will be led by District Governor nominee Aaron Jacobs, followed by the invocation by past President Glenn Miller, and visitor introductions by Amy Brillinger.
Thank you, President Wilda. Rotarians, please join me. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, friends. Please prepare yourselves for prayer in the manner in which you are accustomed. From the book of Exodus, we hear these words: "The Lord has filled him with a divine spirit, with ability, intelligence, and knowledge, and with every kind of skill to devise artistic designs, to work in gold and silver and bronze, in cutting stones for setting, in carving wood, and in every kind of artistic craft." Lord of all creation and all creativity, we give thanks today for the opportunity to gather once more in this beloved fellowship of Rotary, for the relationships that sustain us, the work that challenges us, and the community that we love and are called to serve. We are grateful for your creative spirit and for opening our eyes to beauty, truth, and new ways of seeing the world. As we hear from today's speaker, may we be inspired by the gifts of imagination and discipline. May we be reminded that creativity has the power to connect us, to heal us, and to build bridges across our differences. Bless now the food that we have received and the hands that have prepared it, and keep us mindful always of the needs of others. To you, the one God of many names, we pray. Amen.
I'm pleased to have the honor of introducing our guests for today's meeting. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing until President Wilda has welcomed you. Fritz Schroeder, guest of Albert Blakely. Eleni Pornaras, guest of Albert Blakely. Renee Evans, guest of our speaker. Judy Blakely, guest of past President Jackie Summers. Actually, there are several guests here of past President Jackie Summers, so including Ann Kinsley, Nada Lau, Joe Crosswhite, Chris Crosswhite, Randy Parker, guest of Ben Shipley, Mark Platts, guest of Ben Shipley, Rob Fawcett, guest of past District Governor Dick Brown, John Fawcett, guest of past District Governor Dick Brown, Zach Klein, guest of President Wilda, Param Kaboli, guest of Thomas Caltagirone, and Rhea Sibal, guest of Thomas Caltagirone.
Guests, we're so glad to have you here with us today. Whether this is your first visit or you're back again, it's always a pleasure to have new faces in the room. If what you see here today resonates with you, we'd love to have you consider becoming part of our Rotary family. Rotarians, please help me welcome our visitors. You may be seated. And now for our announcements this week. The IDEA committee will meet on May 11th at 9 o'clock on Zoom. The Communications Committee will meet on May 12th at noon on Zoom, and the Fundraising Committee will meet on May 13th at 8 o'clock on Teams, and the PPE Committee will also meet on May 13th at 8 a.m. on Zoom. As a reminder, the Preserve Planet Earth Committee's lithium-ion battery collection is on May 13th, which is next week, before Rotary in the lower parking lot. This initiative is part of a district-wide project. Past President Al Sykes shared more information on this project on April 22nd. If you have any questions, please see Al. The Membership Engagement Committee extends congratulations to Jake Miller Jr. on his 30th anniversary of being a member of the Rotary Club of York. He joined the club this week in May 1996. And now, President-elect nominee Kelly Gibson has an update from Give Local.
Good afternoon. Well, happy post Give Local York to all who celebrate. I know Lisa certainly does. We at the Rotary Club of York took a different stance for Give Local York this year. Instead of being a fundraiser, we joined other funders in our community to strategically support the work of York City Youth Success and had a lunchtime $500 prize for organizations that meet that focus area. And as you'll see on the screens, we were able to give five $500 prizes out on May 1st at the noon hour. And we're really thrilled to say that several of those in our club were amongst those, including Keystone Kidspace and Warner Early Learning Center. So we hope that as club members, you are proud to see the Rotary step up and help to fund worthwhile organizations meeting the focus area of York City Youth Success. And we continue to plan doing that in the future. Thank you, Lisa, and all your team for Give Local York. It was a fantastic day of giving in York County. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. It's great to see Rotary in the mix of supporters offering prizes this year coming from the nonprofit perspective. And now Phil Woods has a riveting recap on my Little League debut last month.
We did not prepare the video of the first pitch that Wilda threw, but it was a good one. I want to talk a little bit about the history, the connection between the Rotary Club of York and York City Little League. You can enjoy some of the photos up here. This was our 23rd opening day at Rotary Fields at Allen Park. So Wilda was there. Raise your hand if you were wearing the downtown costume that day. He's not going to raise his hand. But we had a great turnout. The weather was beautiful. I want to go back in history a little bit. Over 20 years ago, the Rotary Club of York led the campaign effort to build 4 Little League baseball and softball fields, 2 at Rotary Fields at Allen Park, 2 at Rotary Fields at Odeon Park. That was in coordination with the YMCA, the City of York, and the Baseball Tomorrow Fund, which is an organization through Major League Baseball. The original effort, the continued support allows York City Little League to accomplish some parallel goals of the Rotary Club of York, and I want to mention 2. First, the Rotary Club of York has continued to support York City residents under the age of 18, preparing for their futures as successful students, leaders, and community members. Similarly, the mission of Little League International states, Little League believes in the power of youth baseball and softball to teach life lessons that build stronger individuals and communities. With that, since 1960, the Little League model has officially been character, courage, and loyalty. And that's served as a reminder that the program's primary goal is to foster well-rounded, good citizens. And through teamwork, discipline, and community, Little League serves as a leadership program preparing youth for life by teaching fairness, respect, inclusion, and responsibility both on the field and off the field. I'm proud to highlight that last week, one of our contest winners, Adele Nazario, is a York City Little Leaguer. He's an alum. And it shows that the work, together Rotary Club and York City Little League are successful in cultivating young leaders. I want to also mention the club's continued efforts for environment in the city of York, both physical, cultural, and social. York City Little League, it helps maintain currently 7 fields in the city of York, improving our green space. We've done numerous tree plantings on site at those locations. We also, with the activity, it creates a vibrant social environment. We have probably over 100 games easily that we host throughout our spring and fall seasons. And something that gets missed a lot of times is the impact on our volunteers and coaches. Some of our volunteers and coaches, not just in York City Little League, but across all youth sports, they don't necessarily have the opportunity to develop leadership, communication, emotional intelligence, some other skills that they absolutely get to have the opportunity to develop while they're coaching our youth. So it helps with our cultural environment. So again, a lot of success, parallel success between the two organizations. So if you want to learn more, you can, if you want to talk a lot, talk to Al Sykes, fellow Rotarian Nick Beck, or myself. I take the opportunity when I get it. And before I close, I do want to bring President Wilda up and present her with one of our softball jerseys having the Rotary logo on the sleeve. And in the spirit of Leadership York and the ongoing disputes of best class ever, we chose number 1. So thank you. Thank you, President Wilda, for your continued support. Thanks for throwing a strike and showing the boys and girls how to do it. And to all of you fellow Rotarians, thank you for your continued support. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Yeah.
Bill Hunter reminded me, Rotary gear has to be ordered by tomorrow. Since we handed out a shirt, it was the reminder for Rotary gear.
So get your orders in. Thank you so much, Phil. It was truly an honor to throw out a successful first pitch. And I only practiced a little bit with Commissioner Wheeler, like on the sidelines beforehand. So got the good old arm back from childhood. So the work that you and all of the volunteers do makes such a difference in these kids' lives. Getting them involved in sports at a young age helps build confidence, discipline, and a sense of belonging, skills that stay with them for life. And I do have to say, we didn't have the picture up, but there was this little leaguer. She was like this tall. She was so cute. Oh my gosh. I didn't know that they taught Little League that young, but Al loves it. He says it's the easiest thing ever. Teaching little children how to play baseball. So now I invite Lisa Barshinger, all refreshed from Give Local, to the podium for a membership engagement exercise.
Good afternoon. Prior to the meeting starting, I shared with you today's Membership Engagement Committee question as an opportunity for you at your table to get to know one another, something we want to continue to do every couple of weeks. And today's question is, what's your go-to way to recharge when life gets busy? And so I want to throw that question out to you. I hope you had an opportunity to have that conversation. I know my table had a great conversation around that, learned a lot about my table mates. But before I throw it out to you, I want to throw it to Wilda. I know you've had a lot going on. You're wrapping up some programs. You had a Give Local campaign. I mean, you're running all over the place today. So how do you recharge?
There's a few ways. My favorite is when the weather cooperates, is sitting in a hammock chair under a tree, just swinging there and staring up the leaves and hoping that a bird doesn't go to the bathroom on me. But also going out and hang out with friends, being able to just disconnect from the busyness of life and just be intentional and just laughing and having a good time with them. So if that's a rainy day thing or sunny day thing, especially if you can sit outside somewhere downtown.
Both sound great. And I love that you use the word intentional, being intentional about it. So now I want to throw it out to you. Hopefully we have a mic that can run around the room for us. Who wants to kick us off? Who wants to get us started? All right. We have a mic on its way.
There we go. This will sound tacky, but it's the truth. When I get busy and I need to unwind, in the middle of the week, I like to go hang out with 100 of my friends at Rotary.
Love that. Who else wants to help us unwind?
If I have the time to take a nap or go for a walk.
Okay, but important question
Okay.
here. Because we had this conversation at our table. When you say take a nap, is it a couch nap or is it a bed nap?
I am a bed napper, I guess.
Well, you need to connect with Rebecca Hanlon over here because she is a couch napper.
My neck cannot handle that. I need the pillow.
Thank you for sharing. Who else? How do we unwind? Mike's on its way.
Reading and watching old movies.
Oh, okay. All right. I like that. We talked a lot about just binge watching TV.
I talk to my dogs.
Oh,
They're not judgmental.
I appreciate that you brought up your pets. That is not something that came up at our table. And that's shocking coming from me. I love my cat.
So we have a lot of readers at this table,
Okay.
quite a lot of reading, as well as sitting outside, being outside, doing anything outside in any kind of weather, just to be outside.
I can appreciate that. We talked about that at our table as well, just being with nature. One more. Oh, Alice.
So at our table, it seems like we have some pickleball players here.
Oh.
So if you ever need anything about pickleball, Roger is who you want to contact because he's the expert who does it. Is it every day, Roger, you told me?
I don't even play.
Yeah. Every day this man plays, what was it? 2 hours, correct, Roger? 2 hours a day. So pickleball.
Pickleball might be a fun membership engagement committee activity. We can all get together and learn together. Oh, yes, Al.
Jack Daniels.
Oh, that'll work too. You know what? Do we have another hand here? No. Oh, okay. Well, then on that note, I want to thank you for participating. I hope you were taking notes and finding some other ways to recharge going into the summer season. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. At our table, we talked about cat naps, literally taking a nap with your cat, and how relaxing that is to play with kittens. So we do a lot as a club and for our community. So having conversations like this are a good reminder that taking care of ourselves helps sustain the impact that we're trying to make in our community. And now past President Josh George has some new members to induct.
Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. And you heard President Wilda say that we have members, plural, to induct, and yet you only see one standing up there. That is because we are joined by one in person and one on Zoom. So I would like to first introduce you to probably somebody that you've already known, Jess Brubaker. Jess is a graduate of the Miss Edgars and Miss Cramp School, which is in Montreal. And she went on to the Lower Canada College and then ultimately earned her BA in politics from Princeton and her MBA from Harvard. She is the co-founder and executive director of Keystone Kidspace. Now, show of hands, how many people have been to Keystone Kidspace? All right, that is pretty good. You're getting like 100% of the audience here. That's great. You'll find her down there most days. And so if you ever need to connect her outside of Rotary, that's where you'll find her. Community service-wise, she is a board member of the PA Partnership for Children. She's a mentor for the Mentorship York program. She is on the education committee for the York County Alliance for Learning, and she is a member of the Women's Giving Circle at the Community Foundation. Her hobbies include travel, cooking, and attending her kids' sporting events. She is married to Pat, and they are the parents of Colin, who is 20, and Sean, who is 16. And she is proposed for membership by Chad Myers. Ladies and gentlemen, Jess Brubaker. And second, we have Katie Doyle. And I'm sure many of you know Katie from her work at York Catholic High School. And she is with us on Zoom. And I don't know if Ben's going to be able to get her pulled up on the screen or not. There she is. Hi, Katie. Welcome to Rotary. She is a graduate of York Catholic High School and went on to Elizabethtown College, where she earned her BA in Social Studies Education, and then Loyola University, where she earned her master's degree in education. She is both the first female head of school and the current president of York Catholic High School. Her community service includes serving as a board member for Dream Rights, and she's a past board member for the York JCC. Her hobbies include dancing, cooking, gardening, and travel. And she is she's the mother of Addie, who is 21, Anna, who is 19, and Liam, who is 13. And she is proposed for membership by Sean Skehan. Ladies and gentlemen, Katie Doyle.
Sorry, to pull the microphone down. Thank you, Josh, and welcome to the Rotary Club. I'm so glad that you've joined us. You're now part of, I'm not sure where to look, the community that cares deeply about making a difference right here in York and around the world. We're excited for the energy, talents, and perspective that you bring. And I know that you'll find meaningful ways to get involved. And I hope that you've built some lasting friendships along the way. And I'm personally excited to have another member of the Best Class Ever Mentorship 2015 joining Rotary. So thank you again, and help me welcome our newest members. And now Fran Hoover will introduce our speaker for today.
I have been so excited for about 2 months to know that I have this opportunity. For the last 44 years, Rob Evans has lived and worked in his studio on a farm overlooking the Susquehanna River in York County, land once owned by his maternal grandparents. Throughout his career, Rob has remained rooted in York County, while exhibiting his work internationally and contributing to the community as a dedicated art activist and creator. Our paths crossed about 35 years ago as board members of then York Arts. Rob's work is held in more than 40 major museum collections nationwide, including the National Gallery of Art, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Library of Congress, and the San Francisco Art Museums. He has held retrospectives and participated in curated exhibitions in prestigious institutions such as Corcoran Museum of Art, the Tretyakov Museum in Moscow, and the National Academy of Art in New Delhi. His paintings are featured in a 1985 Smithsonian International Survey of American Drawings and exhibited alongside those of Andrew Wyeth and Andy Warhol. In the 2001 touring exhibition, Artists of the Commonwealth, that's when all that happened. In 2014, the Federal Reserve Board featured his work alongside Van Gogh, Matisse, and Picasso in an exhibition of highlights from the collection of the Federal Reserve Board. Rob's work has been profiled in the Washington Post, Art and Antiques, and American Art Collector, as well as on PBS, NPR, and the Huffington Post. As an independent curator, Rob has organized landmark exhibitions, including the Traveling Visions of the Susquehanna, accompanied by the 80-page book of the river's 250-year artistic history. This project led to the first ever collection of Susquehanna-related art, curated by Evans, now housed at the Zimmerman Center for Heritage. In 2015, he was invited by Governor Tom Wolf and First Lady Frances Wolf to curate the exhibit of prominent Pennsylvania artists at the State Museum in Harrisburg for the inaugural festivities. For over 30 years, Rob has been a pillar of the local arts community. He served on the founding board of York Arts, now Creative York, and at its current location, curating its exhibitions for its first 7 years, and was founding artistic director of the Pennsylvania Arts Experience. Rob was instrumental in establishing Market View Arts as a new downtown arts venue in York, and helped advocate bringing York College's fine art program into the second floor space, their first ever presence downtown. Rob will tell you about being the founding curator for the Friends of the Susquehanna River Art Collection. And with that, now I am proud to present my friend, the man of the half hour, Rob Evans.
Thank you, Fran, for that wonderful introduction. I'm almost exhausted from hearing my own life spread out like that. As I look back over, 50-year career as an artist, I think about the importance of the impact of place on the trajectory of our lives. And in particular, I think about the importance of those places that we encounter when we're children. And for me, that place was the Susquehanna River. Both my parents were raised on the Susquehanna. My dad grew up near Wilkes-Barre in the coal mining town of Plymouth. And my mom grew up in this house. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's called Round Top, and it's a gigantic stone home that sits on a ridge overlooking the Susquehanna River across from Chickies Rock. I was very lucky as a kid to escape kind of the dull, monotonous suburbs of Washington, D.C., where I grew up, and to be able to escape to Round Top and roam the woods, collecting natural artifacts. It was a paradise for me and my brothers to escape there from D.C. And as I began to formulate my persona as an artist growing up, one of the biggest impacts on me was the Pennsylvania artist Andrew Wyeth. And probably most of you are familiar with his work. We had a print of one of his watercolors hanging in our dining room, this one called Mayday, which will come into play a little later on. As I decided to become a professional artist, I went off to Syracuse University and studied fine art there. And this is one of my student works. And as you can see, Round Top was still kind of at the forefront of my imagination. I was doing a lot of works that incorporated Round Top and the Susquehanna from my imagination. After graduating from Syracuse, I ended up back here, moved into this farmhouse, which was a part of the Round Top property. And my wife and I eventually were married there. We raised a family there, and we've been there ever since. And the farm has a wonderful view of the river, looking south towards Turkey Hill and towards Long Level. And once we eventually acquired the farm, one of the first things we did was renovate the barn into a giant studio space where both Renee and I could have studios to work. We also put in a gallery space and a conference room and really put the barn to work. Renee also gives art lessons there. So as I began to explore the architecture of the farmhouse and the surrounding buildings, I began to formulate my own personal style as an artist, which was sort of a magic realist style, for those of you who might be familiar with that. Work has a bit of a dreamlike quality, a dark and light mystery, that kind of aspect to it. And one of the first series I did after graduating and moving into the farmhouse was a series of interior drawings that explored the house, kind of the ghosts who had lived there, a little bit of a surreptitious self-portrait. And I'll kind of move through these quickly to stay on schedule here, but part of the essence of these works was they put out a somewhat of an ambiguous narrative with clues suggesting something going on, but not quite explained. And that kind of gives you this ability to bring your own narrative to the work and pull you in. In this case, you have the shovel in the background. Here you have a phone off the hook. The pot of water is boiling off on the stove. And there you can see peppers on the wall, kind of connecting to an earlier work. So these works all had that aspect to it. So this was a large diptych view of the upstairs. And again, you have the bathtub about to overflow with the steam, and it creates this mysterious narrative going on. This is a view of the basement, kind of looking down into the guts and the heart of the house. And the furnace actually reminded me of a heart. This drawing is about 6 feet wide and took 2 years to complete. And here you can see the light kind of shining through the shirt, which suggests the whole idea of where the heart is located. The centerpiece of this show was a great big 8-foot wide triptych called Evening Ritual. And in it, the perspective shifts from panel to panel slightly. And again, you have this suggestion that something's happening, almost like a stage set where people have just left the stage or are about to come in. So I had my very first solo show in Washington, D.C. at the Arlington Arts Center in 1989. And it was basically all of these interior drawings. I didn't know what to expect from it. And I was very fortunate to have a rave review in the Washington Post that pretty much changed the trajectory of my art career. The next day, the gallery was filled with people. Curators from all the major museums came. And the Corcoran ended up acquiring one of my large works from the exhibit. It led to my participating in a historic exchange between Moscow and Washington, D.C. that was exhibited at the Tretyakov Museum. And then a year later, I was invited back to Moscow to participate in a 5-artist exhibit at the Central Exhibition Hall. And it was a fascinating experience because it was a very tumultuous time in Russia. And actually was there at the moment the flag changed from communist to democratic. So it was a really fascinating historic time. So for the next several decades, I built a career doing large-scale narrative works that had some metaphorical content to it, based on imagery from our farm, from Round Top, from our family life, and from the Susquehanna Valley and the surrounding landscape and flora and fauna. This is a large painting, one of the first ones I did of Renee and our son Lucas. It's called Refuge. It's owned by the Southern Alleghenies Museum of Art. And it's an homage to motherhood and the security of home and the tumultuous world that the child eventually faces out there. This is a work that basically tied into my childhood memories of going to my paternal grandparents' home up near Wilkes-Barre. And back then, parents just let kids roam. And so my brothers and I literally roamed up into the strip mines hunting fossils. And here's a close-up, and it's actually based on a rubbing I did from one of the fossils we found as a kid. Another work from Round Top based on memories of collecting the large silk moths that would come to the house at night. And I also did a number of large-scale insect paintings. I've always been fascinated by insects. And in this case, this is a 5-foot wide praying mantis, which for me became a metaphor for the predatory forces in the world. And there you can see in the background the Susquehanna River flowing off in the distance. Another large watercolor of a zebra swallowtail. And then this is a graphite study for a large triptych that I did. It's about 7 feet wide. And it uses a narrative format, somewhat like a movie storyboard, where the narrative moves from left to right. So on the left, you have the moths being attracted to the light. And then one of the moths is captured and put on the board in the middle. And then it ends up in the framed work on the wall on the right. This was a study for another large monumental work called Cicada. And it's based on two things: my memories of the sound of cicadas as a kid at Round Top, but it was also based on the fact that Round Top had just sold and left the family. And so it was about this whole idea of impermanence and things ultimately that you think are permanent are eventually going to change. And so on the left, you have a child entering, and this is all set at Round Top, with a sparkler and the fireworks going off, which is an age-old symbol for impermanence and change. In the center panel, you have the cicada leaving one phase of life and moving into another. And then in the right panel, you have the wheelchair leaving, which is sort of an homage to my grandmother who had Lou Gehrig's disease and lived in the house alone for some time. So the whole painting became kind of a cycle of life. And you can see the little circle of stones on the floor, which kind of reinforced that metaphor. So the painting Cicada was eventually included in a landmark exhibit called Artists of the Commonwealth that Fran mentioned, where I got to show alongside Andy Warhol and Andrew and Jamie Wyeth. And what was really exciting about that show is that on the bottom image, you can see Cicada hanging on the wall. And to the left of it is the Andrew Wyeth, which just happened to be May Day, the painting that we had hanging on our wall in the dining room growing up. Really amazing full circle moment for me. Cicada was eventually acquired by the James Michener Art Museum. And here it is, part of their permanent collection. And so partway through my career, I shifted gears, moving away from gallery representation and working more as an independent artist. And this is one of the first museum shows I had at the Allentown Art Museum in 1993. And I began to get interested in promoting my own work and working directly with art museums. And so I put together an exhibit tour in 1997 that went to 5 different museums. I worked with the museums who designed the catalogs. Here's the exhibit at the Peninsula Fine Arts Center in Newport News. And here I actually also got to design and install the exhibit myself, which was my first foray into curating, which would come into play later on in my career. Another interesting tangent is I had my work reproduced in a literary journal, the Gettysburg Review, which ended up allowing me to do book covers for a number of prominent American writers, including Charles Baxter. This is the painting that we ended up using on the cover, and a number of books by other prominent artists, including some internationally. Another tangent that I explored was digital art. In the 1990s, I got to work with David Adamson, who was one of the pioneers of digital printmaking. And I got to very fortunate to be included in the Washington portfolio, which was the first ever all digital print portfolio published in the art world. And it generated a lot of interest. The Washington Post did a big story on it, and I ended up on the cover of Digital Imaging magazine, of all things. And then the portfolio was acquired by a number of museums, including the Federal Reserve Board. And here you can see my print hanging at the bottom of the steps of the lobby of the Fed. Also was involved with the portfolio project organized by the Corcoran Museum. And I did a 6-color lithograph of an image of our daughter, Quinn. And I like to, who's now a grown adult and a full-time artist. And I like to kid with her that she's now sleeping in a lot of different museums at the moment. One other more recent interesting project was I was invited by the Evansville Museum in Indiana to be a part of a show called the Object Project. We were each given 5 objects. They picked 15 artists from around the country who were sort of prominent realist artists. And we got these objects in a box like this, wrapped in bubble wrap, And we basically had 2 years to come up with something. And the show traveled to museums around the US. And I ended up, instead of trying to do a still life with the objects, I tried to tie them into a narrative and ended up putting them in this large scale altarpiece. The frame was built by Walt Whiteley. Many of you probably know Walt. And it basically got into the whole dialogue and debate between science and religion. And I won't go into all the metaphor here, but it was an interesting work called Origins. And a lot of my work deals with these kind of open-ended narratives that have a specific meaning for me, but they're open-ended enough that you can bring your own meaning to it. This is the object project on display at the Philbrook Museum in Tulsa, and you can see the objects, how they displayed them in the box. This gives a sense of the scale of the altarpiece. And also a little behind the scenes, the painting, because it was a traveling exhibit, we had to design it in such a way that it could be broken down and put into a crate. So a few years later, I was invited back by the Evansville Museum to have my first major museum retrospective. And this was 30 years of work all together for the first time. It was quite an experience. So another aspect of what I do, aside from these studio narrative works, is I do more straightforward landscape. And some of them are painted out on location, which is a challenge, fighting the elements, the mosquitoes. This is a painting of Otter Creek, and I'll run through these fairly quickly. It's an image down here along level of clouds sort of forming above the islands. And in this case, this was painted on location, and this is the same cloud painted twice, because by the time I'd finished the one on the left, it had moved and turned into the one on the right. Clouds are something I paint a lot. I'm really passionate about doing imagery of clouds. And some of you might recognize this one. This is a study for the painting that's in the lobby of the Yorktown Hotel. Great big painting, an image of storm clouds over Chickies Rock. And these are just show a few more of my Susquehanna related images. Many are views from Round Top, at different times of day, different season, all sort of capturing the beauty of this valley. One of the amazing sunsets up at Round Top. The ice that forms down at Long Level. You can see the windmills in the background. And of course, many of you probably know this bridge, Lincoln Highway Bridge, with the great flocks of migrating birds that follow the river. So about 20 years ago, I embarked on my first curatorial project, and that was to explore the artistic legacy of the Susquehanna River. And as Fran mentioned, I put together a traveling exhibit that borrowed about $5 million worth of paintings from museums across the country. And what was interesting is that I didn't realize that many of the paintings that I saw in the halls of like the Met and other places that were in galleries labeled Hudson River School, many of these paintings were actually Susquehanna River paintings. Paintings by Benjamin West, the founder of American art, and this lower image by Jasper Cropsey of the Struka Viaduct, which is considered sort of the Mona Lisa of 19th century American landscape painting. I had no idea that these were Susquehanna images. The show also included a selection of contemporary art by prominent artists, and we ended up working with the Susquehanna National Heritage Area to acquire the contemporary art and form the first ever collection of Susquehanna River art, which is still on view down at the Zimmerman Center at Long Level. The show generated a lot of press and a lot of interest, and really got me thinking that I needed to do more research into this subject. And so I began collecting on my own prints of the Susquehanna River. Many of them were still affordable. You could buy them on eBay. And the collection kind of grew and grew till it kind of got out of hand. But then a real interesting narrative began to form, and that is that not only did the artists make these paintings, but they were also engaging with prints and technology and documenting almost every aspect of the history of what happened along this river, from the first contact with Native people to the building of dams on the Susquehanna River in the 1930s. And they were using the most recent mass production printing processes, for instance, transferware, where instead of having a hand-painted piece of pottery, the average person could now own a beautiful piece of pottery like this. So these works got disseminated out into the world and made the Susquehanna River one of the most famous rivers in the world by the mid-19th century, including some interesting connections to some of the most prominent naturalists of the 19th century, John James Audubon, one of the first books ever published of American wildflowers, which had the Susquehanna River behind all the flowers. And an amazing book by Samuel Haldeman, who lived below Chickee's Rock and did, of all things, a book of Susquehanna land snails, illustrated by one of the most prominent women artists of the time. And that book was actually cited in Charles Darwin's Origin of the Species as being one of the most important influences on his theory of evolution. So the Susquehanna has all these amazing connections. And probably the most important aspect of this collection is the fact that I pretty much uncovered that the Susquehanna was the impetus that really formed the aesthetic that became known as the Hudson River School. And the Hudson River School, for those of you who don't know it, was considered America's first authentic art movement. And in addition to the art, there's this book by James Fenimore Cooper, which kind of kicked off that whole movement and is considered the first authentic American novel. And it's called The Pioneers. And the subtitle of that book is Sources of the Susquehanna. So when you look at really what created an American identity, the Susquehanna is what started that whole artistic sublime movement of the American landscape. So as this collection built momentum, I've been fortunate to have some other patrons join in and help acquire some major works that were way beyond my means. And a good friend is going to auction regularly and buying beautiful paintings like this one of the Susquehanna River. And the collection has now grown to more than 200 works, and it's really one of the biggest collections of Susquehanna River art in the world. And it tells a really important national story. And so we now, just last year, formed a new nonprofit, as Fran mentioned, called Friends of the Susquehanna River Art Collection. And its mission is it took ownership of the collection, and it's helping us grow and care for the collection until we're able to build a dedicated art museum. And right now, the collection is on display up at the Susquehanna Art Museum in Harrisburg through June 28th. I encourage all of you to visit it if you get a chance. It's in this expansive space, and it really shows well there. And speaking of an art museum, it looks like we might be actually making that happen. We're excited to be working with the Susquehanna National Heritage Area as part of their Susquehanna Discovery Center and Heritage Park project at the Mifflin Farm outside of Wrightsville. And we're looking to do a 6,000 square foot art museum that would be something like the Brandywine Museum for the Susquehanna. And it's a few years out, but we're very excited about how that's developing. And so I'll end with this. It's a painting from last year, and it comes full circle. It's a view from Round Top, and it's called River of Gold. And for me, it's a metaphor for the treasure trove of inspiration that this river has given me, allowing me to have a full career as a successful artist and to uncover an amazing art historical legacy that was missing from the pages of art history. And so my hope is that through creating this body of work and through developing this art museum, that it will inspire future generations of artists to come to this river valley and be inspired, just as I was. So thank you very much. And I don't know how much time we have for questions, but yeah, anybody has any questions, happy to answer. And I'm also happy to stay around afterward and answer questions personally as well. Of course, Albert.
So, if you don't know, Rob and I have worked together for a while, and my involvement with this collection is limited but enthusiastic. My question for you is, to what extent have scholars of American art come to embrace your origin story of the Susquehanna River being what ultimately led through many steps to the Hudson River School? Is this starting to be more widely recognized?
Well, we're still putting that to the test, but one good indicator is that we have as our lead consultant working with us, Terry Sultan, who is the former curator at the Corcoran Museum of Art, and she's very much engaged with this project and believes that it's a really important, aspect to add to art history. So that's a good sign, but we haven't yet heard from those Hudson River School museums up there that I know are going to give us a hard time. So, yeah, yep.
I'm curious about your narrative aspect of your art. And I noticed in some of the examples that you showed that it seemed to me like you were showing everyday activity that at least I would normally associate with daytime, but you were showing them at nighttime. And I was curious if you could expand on the thinking behind that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think some of that, like I'll use for an example, Refuge with the swimming pool, and my wife standing there. I think by moving it into that sort of transitional light, going into night, it helps increase the drama of the sort of that dark, forbidding world that's out beyond the pool, and sort of emphasizes that whole idea of motherhood and the protectiveness that you see in the light in the foreground. So I'll often use that as a dramatic tool, to sort of emphasize the narrative a little in a stronger way. Yep. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rob. I think what stands out is not just about the reach of your work, but how deeply rooted it is here in York and with the Susquehanna. So that connection to the Susquehanna and to York County is something that we all benefit from, whether we realize it or not. And your continued investment in the arts community here is what really matters. I would just say, I forget which one of when you put one of your pictures, I was like, oh, it just took me back to again, like studying art and stuff, like taking a couple of classes. I'm not artistic. I appreciate art. So thank you for making our world more beautiful through your work and bringing and highlighting our area and the heritage that we have here. Our speaker has signed a book to be donated to the YWCA York's Early Learning Child Care Center, along with a bookmark made by students at Creative York. This week's book is A Squiggly Story. Next week, we will hear from Ryan McKinley, president of Statewide Partners, who will present on the vision behind Heritage Crossings and the growing role of multifamily development in shaping downtown York's future. He will discuss how quality housing, mixed-use investment, and thoughtful urban development can support a stronger, more vibrant city, help attract new residents, support local businesses, and contribute to the long-term revitalization. He will also share how this development fits into a broader conversation about walkability, community investment, and economic growth in York. With that, our meeting is adjourned. Have a great afternoon.